We move on to our panel discussion, which is on reskilling the workforce with next-gen technology. For this, I would like to invite all the panelists. Mr. VENKATESH PS, Head Business Continuity Management Central Operation from Cognizant. Mr. Amit VK, Senior Director, India Operations Head, Insurance and Finance Delivery, DXC Technology. Mr. Stephen Ernest, Vice President, International Operation from StarTech. Mr. Kiran Jonnakuty, Delivery Head, Enterprise Apps from Conduent. Mr. Sushant Purushan, EVP and India Business Head from Cloud First and Digital IMS 3i Infotech Limited. This entire session will be moderated by Mr. 𝗘𝗱𝗏 Bakshi, Head Quality Process Excellence and CX from Omega Healthcare Management Services. I'll request you all to please join us on stage and start with the panel discussion.
Hi, good evening everyone. So this is the last panel discussion for today. We hope we will try not to let you all doze off sleep. So I think we should all try to do that. The topic for today's discussion is how do we reskill our workforce for digital first. So we'll be having a discussion. Let us have a free-flowing discussion on this topic on the hows of skilling and reskilling our workforce. Should it be hiring people with technology background? Is that sufficient? Should it be retraining existing employees and retraining who to what level? What should be the approach, the strategy? So we can start discussing on this particular topic. And I'm sure, and we are working with the assumption that we believe that it is important to train employees and to reskill employees on the new digital trends rather than having them not go through their training and be digitally illiterate. So we would prefer that is the primary assumption, or that is the assumption with which we are starting the discussion. So the first question here, maybe if you can let me know is, or maybe Sushant, yeah, you can tell us, is what is the importance of the digital workforce? Why do you think we need a digital workforce in the first place? Because we started with an assumption that we should have a digital workplace, digital workforce, and hence we should be training and reskilling employees for that, on which we'll be discussing. But if you can start the zero question, Sushant, on why is that really needed or is it not needed?
Yeah, good evening. Good evening. First of all, if you see today in industry, it's moving to digital directions. BPO is now called digital BPO. IT services also moving into digital transformation phase. When the industry is driving towards this direction, the biggest component of this industry is the workforce. Now, it is very important that the workforce is also very digitally enabled. They should be ahead of what you look for a transformation. Hence, the necessity and the need is very, very clear. There is no second thought on that. Now, the question here is how effective transformation digital workforce can enable. See, first of all, today you see post-COVID era, now the working culture has changed. You're right, you will not be able to see them earlier days. They are available in various parts of the globe and different types of things. Second, they'll be pushed by a technology led by digital automation as well as an AI, which is also pushing them to adjust to that. Third, very importantly, you have to include a different type of the workforce, including diversified workforce to be part of the working on that, including various cultural background. Finally, management expect this workforce to drive data-driven and analytics-driven type of the things. When the demand is such a thing, now how the digital workforce can benefit for the industry? First of all, digital workforce definitely helps for productivity. Any productivity improvement you require, first of all, the workforce to be productively enabled. So the digital workforce comes with various part of the the process of that. So the productivity improvement which digital workforce contributes. Second important aspect is in digital workforce is the planning, workforce planning. In a traditional workflows, the planning depends upon how this particular office space works on the availability of that. In the digital workflows, the planning is cause employee planning is differently things. And you can plan, you can schedule it much better. So the employee planning is very important on that. The third important aspect which digital workforce today, most of we are working on today a customer environment which is controlled by compliances governances. So digital workforce will help you to achieve that compliance as well as to meet the compliance as well. So you do not want to, train the people in ad hoc basis because these workforce are such a way it is trained and enabled skilled so that you will be able to meet the compliance part of that. The later part of if you take is engagement. One of the important aspect of the digital workforce is how do you engage people to delivering higher output of that. The digital workforce are engaged not because only a direct media, they will involved in various medias together. So they involved in an engaged environment, so you will be able to quickly involve them, you can align them and take it forward as this. And the last point I say, because of the digital workforce is such a things, you will definitely achieve one important facet of the business is cost effectiveness. You will save the cost and you will drive the cost effective. So overall, it's basically digital works is the need now, it's a mandatory aspect rather than we look forward on that. That's my view.
Thanks. I have another question again, which may fall in the space of understanding the topic in greater detail, and any of you, if you can help in trying to answer that question. And that question is, what is the meaning, what is the definition of digital workforce? For instance, if we are talking of managers, are we saying that the managers should have the right analytics abilities? Should they have work from home abilities? Should trainers know how to have engaging training sessions in a remote environment? So what all does it encompass when we use the word digital workforce? In our BPO context, what really should be the priority or what should we be talking about?
So I'll take a stab at it, right? So I think, when we look at digital workforce, the way I'd like to interpret it is having a workforce that can break down the tons of data that's available and be able to use it effectively, right? I think the one challenge that we have today is there's, truckloads of data, and we were talking about, 300 plus, million terabytes of data per day. The big problem that we have, and companies are struggling with all across, is that they're not able to break that data down and use it effectively. What's the point of having all of the scorecards and score sheets if you can't make sense of it, right? So my opinion is, creating a digital workforce is about making sure that people are able to engage and adapt to being able to break that down and use it effectively. If not, it just proves that you're going to get nothing out of it.
Right. And from that point of view, again, just a follow-up question, if you can help with, is again, when we are talking of these, of making use of the data, at what level of people and which roles of people is this going to be critical? So, which people, who will be the consumers of the information from data? So who will be the consumers and who will be using the data? What is needed for them to really understand what they need to understand? And people who want to explain and drive performance, for them maybe a different skill set is needed?
No, I mean, see, at the end of the day, I won't say a different skill set. The requirement, I think, is going to be different. The idea is that, you have to have a penchant or, a drive or a pull towards being able to look at the data. For example, at the entry level, at an agent level, he needs to be able to look at his numbers, look at quality dashboards and see where he stands, right? A team lead will need to break it down for his team. And, you'll probably have an individual plan, you'll have a team plan, and, so on and so forth. You come into management, he'll need to break down his P&L and understand, what's going on. So, when you look at it, the requirement of someone being able to associate with those numbers is critical. It doesn't matter the level, because at some point in time, the paths will cross in some way or the other.
No, absolutely, I agree. And on the same theme, because again, we may look at a couple of other themes for a digital workplace.
But
on-
before
yeah,
that, I
sorry.
just want to take a step back,
Sure.
and I think what Steve said is absolutely true, right? But having said that, I think what we need to first understand is I come from an operations, so I had the India operations. So I can tell you my team are a bunch of subject matter experts, right? They know the process inside out, but do they know the technology intervention that will bring in the kind of efficiencies, productivity to the processes, right? Now, I think that is where we need to understand. I think everyone wants to jump into the bandwagon of technology. But what's more important is it's not about technology marrying the business model or the process, but the process marrying the technology, right? Which means the technology needs to understand, behave what the process needs are, but not the other way around. And that's why we fall flat on our nose. So this is where I was coming from, right? This is going to pave way to reskilling. Now, that's where I'll come back, and I'm sure there are a few more questions. But for me, this is the essence, right? Because typically from operations, especially the BPO guys, and I can tell you, they know inside out of the process. Right? The technology is the piece that they need to build themselves on, reskilling themselves. And obviously, I'll have a few more thoughts on that when the question comes.
Right. I think I have one follow-up question from what he said. Let me first take, something comes to my mind as you speak of this, related to this topic. And I think both your observations are very, I think very nice, very good, both of yours. So what comes to my mind as you are speaking about this is, do you think that, you said that many of these technology interventions fall on their nose because of the gap between between, right. So do you think one of the reasons is because the consultants who come to implement technology solutions, they are like people who are speaking Greek and users don't understand, users understand English, and they look upon those people who are speaking Greek as Greek gods, they are coming as gods, technology people, we are
No, and I think
Earth
your,
people, and
your question is absolutely valid to the point that I alluded about, right? I'll give you an example. So one of the things that we are doing within our operations is we have actually selected a bunch of people, right? And since they have the expertise in the process, we have started to reskill them into thinking consultative. So what does consultative bring to the table? It's about an end-to-end solution, bringing newer solution. The newer solutions is more about innovation, more about digital, right? So now that they know the process, they are going into depth of understanding. So tomorrow when a technology guy goes to talk to a client on what he wants to deploy, he is not going to go without the process guys. He needs to carry them along. He needs to have a chair at the table, right? And discuss as to what are the nuances with this technology versus that, because he knows the process and he understands the business model. So we've started to do that. So we got to identify and reskill our people to be able to have that conversation.
So there was one question actually which is a part of the questions which I was thinking of covering. That is the how of what you have done that. So I think everyone would relate to what you said. It does make a lot of sense. But when you said that you reskilled that team of people, how did you identify, select those people? What was the criteria, and what was a part of the how of reskilling? How did you reskill them?
So one is obviously you are looking at their performance on a year-on-year basis, right? And having to do that, you obviously will look at a certain level of experience, right? You do not want to look at agent level, associate level who are freshers to get into this, because they have a day's job. So you got to identify certain people with good set of experience and also have the appetite to grasp, right? And to learn. And that's what they're showing, on a day-to-day basis when they are running their operations. So while you do that, and even the clients come up and say that, there are certain people who are making a difference to our process. They're making a difference to our business, right? Not just process, from an end-to-end perspective. So you're bringing in a lot of value proposition. So when you do that, you are obviously going to support these individuals, right? To ensure that they're able to pick up more things and actually combine them with some of these automation folks, the technology engineering team, right? And then have those weekly meetings so that they are able to really work together and understand. But having said that, Obviously, as we move forward in the panel discussion, we're going to talk more about reskilling, right? There's a lot of things that happens from a reskilling point of view. It's a leadership buy-in, right? You've got to have the leadership buy-in. People have to really, ensure that learning becomes one of the key pillars of reskilling.
Maybe somebody else can answer this question from their experience. What does reskilling mean? What are the ingredients of reskilling? What are the topics for reskilling, and what is the environment which will promote reskilling? Any thoughts anyone can please share?
Yeah, so let me try answer that. So reskilling goes in two ways. One is somebody is moving from a process A to process B, right? The new process they need to get themselves acquainted with, and that requires, one is unlearning the previous process experience or exposure that they have and trying to understand the new process that they need to. And when it comes to digital reskilling, we're not talking about them unlearning anything, right? They will continue to maintain their know-how on the process knowledge, and at the same time, as we just talked about, right? We're talking about millions and millions of terabytes of data available, and how are we making them connect the dots, right? So they understand the process, right? There is a data which can give them much more insights as to how they have to manage or how they are going to interpret that data for a better performance of the team and the organization, right? So what, under which umbrella we are trying to reskill them matters, right? Based on that, if it's a process, different process reskilling, there's a different route we take. But if it's a reskilling to make them more digitized or digital workers, then yeah, it is on top of what they already know and how they better can utilize the process knowledge and the data that is available to make the data more informative and bringing those analytics that, as Steven said, like at various levels, right? The same data can be looked at people at different levels for different purposes and different strategies.
I agree. Correct. See, again, I'll take this forward from where you said and also connect with what you said, and we can use that as an example if needed. See, let us say you are from operations and there are different operations leaders in various countries or in different units. When we are talking of things like what you were discussing, unless there is standardization across the board on what we do, there will be pockets of excellence and pockets of places where there is a little bit lower,
more of institutionalized knowledge, which kind of
yeah. So one question I'll probably have, or a thought which comes is, when you are talking of what you were just describing, do you think that the Six Sigma, Lean Six Sigma approaches, where we train everybody on whether it is yellow belt or green belt or black belt, do you think that is a sufficient lever for people to appreciate data and how to consume and use data? Does that give sufficient ground to them? Is something needed to tweak it to the current environment, especially about data and consuming, using data, utilizing data is concerned?
Can I? Yeah. See, like, very good question you just brought up. See, in my organization, maybe like 10, 12 years back, there was a situation where for a cab cost in particular location, we were spending close to 1.5C. Okay, so the situation came where they asked me to do a Six Sigma Green Belt project where I had to focus to reduce the cost. Okay, so for that they just offered a training for us, and we just finished the Six Sigma and all. So after that, we just completely sat in a war room. Set up three of us. We completely took all the information from the finance team about all the cab and all. Finally, we just implemented that Lean Six Sigma project. To the surprise of the leadership team, in 3 months, we just reduced the cost of 1.2C, I guess, to 45 lakhs. So it's a very, biggest testimonial that I can quote in my life, what we have done with the help of Six Sigma. But according to me, Six Sigma is one of the important learning for us to implement, but that alone is not sufficient. We have a lot of other trainings, IT trainings, a lot of different things are there where people can implement problem management, change management, all those things so that they can bring in a lot of return of investment to the organization.
And if you actually go back to your question, so BPO industry has been here for like over 3 decades now, right? It started early 90s, mid 90s. But having said that, yellow belt, green belt has become part of our DNA now, right? It is part of your goals. You set it up front, right? Yearly goals as to what are the certain trainings that you need to go and what are the Kaizen stuff. So all of that is given already. I think what's more important now is in the paradigm shift that we're going to have as next gen technology. I think it's about how do we take this workforce to think beyond, right? I guess that is where the reskilling is needed, because the ones what we are talking about now is pretty much given. It's meant to be there in our industry, right? But having said that, the newer technology, how does it really help? Like the workforce is going to become more of digital. Now, what does the human workforce do now, right? That is where they need to step in to start thinking about doing beyond, right? If you look at BPO has been more of a back-end operations. Are we still looking at back-end operations? Because most of back-end operations are getting automated. Technology is coming in, trying to wipe out most of your indexing data entries, right? Now, what we need to do is, what more can we do to the business where we can start to add more value apart from doing these data entries? I think that is where assessment of your workforce is very important. Assessing them as to where they stand now, their current skill versus what is the new required skill needed. That is the gap you got to address and start to plug in. What are the kind of learnings required to plug or bridge that gap?
Yeah, and I think to your point, right, is Six Sigma or Lean gonna get them familiarized with digitization or the digital landscape, and I'll give you an example of myself, and a lot of us could probably relate to it, right? Was I too good as a math student when I was in school? Not necessarily, right? I didn't do too well, and I could see a lot of heads nodding when I said that, right? The point is, when you started working, you started to look at numbers in the form of a lean project or a Six Sigma project or whatever you'd like to call it. But now the difference was you didn't have someone with a piece of chalk writing on the board. Instead, it was something that you could relate to your day-to-day work, right? So then what happens is there is some bit of familiarity which starts to build. So today, the way I look at numbers, I think, my maths teacher will be proud of me, to say the least. So the point is, does it help? I think it does, because you're able to relate and it brings some level of familiarity.
See, one thing which, in my view, Six Sigma did is make problem solving as common language, common vocabulary across the board. It caught the eye of the executives worldwide after Jack Welch claimed or actually got benefits out of the Six Sigma. Now, because of that, it started getting driven across the board and became common vocabulary. However, when we are talking of other learnings, like the ones which we were talking about, for example, the one which you talked about is, I agree, it's not necessarily Six Sigma. I mean, it's something different that you are talking about. He's talking of something different. So do you think a platform like Six Sigma, which could take Six Sigma from pockets of knowledge of quality professionals to a common day knowledge, do you think that could be one way to drive the house? How do we encourage people, or do we just provide them the resources, put banners and standees and danglers that please go and learn? Will that suffice, or is something there to be learned from Six Sigma if we have to achieve the business objectives of people becoming literate in what you said and what you said?
Well, your original question was right. When we are doing this upskilling or digital skilling of employees, is that happening in pockets, right? Is that across the board, or is it in pockets? How do we make it across the board, right? See, Six Sigma definitely a good enabler. Now, I would not say that is by itself will be able to take us there, but what is the organizational strategy, right? How they, for example, if you have multiple processes, and you may not need a digital process in some pockets of that, So you want to bring everybody at the cost that you would invest in digitizing your workforce? Maybe not, right? So it's again how the strategy, right? What is the strategy of the organization? How they want to make it? Because initially day one, definitely not everybody will be there, because you would also be as an organization taking a very selective approach in terms of getting one process, kind of doing a pilot, if you may, right? And if you are seeing the results, if you are convinced yourself that yes, it is delivering the values that we are expecting, that's when you will start, extending it to the rest of the organization.
And one of the key components to this as well is for the employee workforce. I think it's about recognizing and rewarding them, right? Now, you encourage them to get certified on certain courses, be it AI, be it blockchain. There are plethora of, engineering, right, we're talking about. Now, what is key here is what's in it for the employee, right? Now, we got to make sure the first thing is, as an organization, right, we have a budget assigned. There is an investment, right, going into the people. And you start to encourage them by actually making them, more empowered in getting into these certifications, getting into these trainings. And one of the key aspects to this also is performance indicators, key performance indicators. Now, having said that, this person we have invested in, he's getting trained, and we seem to have actually gotten him certified. Now, how is that adding value to our business, right? And do we have measures of that? I think that is one of the significant aspects that most of the organizations should start doing. And because every time, even this conversation happens, within our company as well, when we are getting people to train, and we get external trainers to do some of these, core trainings, be it on technology, be it on, consulting. So the only aspect that I'm very keen about is, tell me, how do I measure my people after they get trained?
One more point also, you see, if late 90s when Six Sigma implemented in G, the major objective was quality, right? Today, 30 years down the line, the objective fundamental of quality will remain same. But having said that, the environment is completely changed. It is a very collaborative environment. As he rightly said, once you crack the data, let's say a few people crack the data, that has to be shared to the entire environment. So that's collaboration sharing will help us to take the digital workforce. So as you rightly said, business environment is very critical. We'll have to fine tune according to take it forward.
I have one last question before we close. What is the ROI of training people on digital? Because at the end of the day, your P&Ls, your running operations is important. So you have to, I'm sure you would have to calculate the ROI of doing what we all are preaching here to do.
Yeah, I'll take this question. So with respect to getting the ROI, I would touch three top things. First is training on the domain. Number two, process. Number three, technology. Why I'm telling domain? So I have seen in the BPO industry, people today they'll be working in the banking related customers. After some, like maybe a year or two, they will be moved to the retail. So without knowing the background of how retail works, it will be very difficult for that associate or that particular manager to give the complete justification for the task given to him, because we need to know what is the peak retail period and how he has to react during the Thanksgiving days. For banking, the way of things works will be different. For retail, it is different. For healthcare, is different. So giving training in the domain is very, very important to get the ROI, because otherwise you can't expect the quality of support from the agents, number one. Number two, with respect to process. I have seen people are doing same mundane work without doing a lot of problem management and all those things. So when I was taking one of the accounts, I saw per month we were getting like close to 25,000 tickets. After we implemented robust ITIL framework, all those things, and putting incident management, problem management, everything in place, we could able to see a considerable reduction of 6,000 tickets per month instead of 25,000. So a lot of things we can do by giving training on the ITL or different process to the agents. Number two. Number three, technology. Since we are all working in the hybrid model now, all the companies are looking to cut short the people. So more I think you can sell yourself. So you need to just know a lot of automation skills and AI related tools, how to get the work done very easily. I've seen people having Excel file, but they were not. They may be doing some 10 reports from that. If that Excel file given to a guy who has got better analytical skills and all, he can produce some 25 analytical reports which will be really need of the hour for the board. Okay, so like that. If it goes to the right hand who has completely trained on the technologies, latest technology, he can just completely do the pivot of that Excel file or whatever the tool you are giving. By doing data analysis, all those things, he can produce a lot of beautiful reports, which will be really the need for the CIO level and put to the board. So people has to be trained on domain, process and technology so that the organization will get the ROI. So that's fine.
If all of you,
just
if all
to
of,
add
no, I'm
to-
saying if all of you, all of us can answer this question and also give their closing remarks, we can close.
So just to add to Venkatesh, right, on a lighter note for everyone, I read it somewhere. So there's a conversation going on between the CFO and CEO of the organization. So the CFO goes to the CEO and says that, sir, we've been training and spending a lot of money, and after a certain period, they are all leaving the organization, right? Then the CEO took a minute and then he said that, yeah, I understand what your problem is, but think of a scenario where you don't train the people and they stick with you, right? So, yeah, I think.
And to the point Ritu, that you were making in terms of ROI, right? Once we get these people digitally fit, so I would still look at it as a redeployment of the new skill, right? Now, the essence of the entire technology or next gen technology that we are talking about is that we are gaining a lot of efficiencies now. That is anyway coming as an ROI. Now, what happens to the workforce? Now, this is where this new skill that they've acquired should be able to brought to the table, right, to the foray, so that they can start to be used there. So which means we bring in more business, we bring in a lot of growth. Career path is put in very clearly, right? And to the point that it could be a churn, yeah, there could be people leaving, but end of the day that you show a career path, I don't see the reason why people should leave, because from A to B company, you're still going to do the same thing. Yes, of course, you may be getting some more money if you have to move, but if you're able to show them that path here, I think we still can sustain and retain people.
So you asked the question, it is not EBITDA here. It is investing back into the business and stay connected, stay ahead. That's the way we have to look into that.
So I think, when we talk about reskilling, just, the statistics say that by 2025, almost 1.8 million jobs will be redundant, which means technology will take over. That being said, there's going to be creation of about 2.3 million jobs, right? And that's because jobs are going to be enhanced. And that's the reason why you look at companies like AT&T, they're spending about, I think, very recently, in the last couple of years, AT&T's invested about 250 million just to upskill people, right? I think Cognizant has got a grant of about 100 million just to upskill people. The point is, if we're not going to be able to upskill ourselves, then, there are going to be jobs begging and technology, and, then we're going to be left with the excuse that technology is going to take our jobs.
We are spending a huge amount for training, upskilling people. Maybe, yeah, excellent. I think a lot of investment we are making to train people. And
Thanks everyone. Any questions from the audience? Thanks. Thank you everyone. Thanks UBS Forums.
Thank you very much.